Okay, so let's solve problem number 6 from projecteuler.net. The title of the problem is Sum Square Difference. The sum of the squares of the first 10 natural numbers is. So it's like 1 squared plus 2 squared, blah, 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 until 10 squared is equal to 385. And the square of the sum of the first 10 natural numbers is 1 plus 2 plus blah, 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 until 10, and then you square all of it, you get 55 squared, and it's 3025. Hence, the difference between the sum of the squares of the first 10 natural numbers and the square of the sum is 3025 minus 385, and you have 2640. Find the difference between the sum of the squares of the first 100 natural numbers and the square of the sum. Okay, so basically this is sum of sequences. There are two ways to solve this. There is the coding way and there is the mathematical way, right? Let's start with the coding method first, which is pretty straightforward. We just loop from 1 to 100 and do the calculation the two different ways and then just subtract. That's pretty straightforward for this problem. We'll create a new directory here. New Python file. Okay, so as I said, we just want to do the two different sums, right? So let's just do it. Sum of the squares equal to 0, and the square of sums, which is also equal to 0. We start with these two variables, and then we just loop for one in range 100. Is 100 included? Let's find out. Yes, 100 should be included. So let's then include 101. This should be the range, and we start from 1, right? Then we loop in this range, and then the sum of the squares, we have to sum I squared. So I just summing the sum of the squares. And the squares of the sums, we just sum first all of the numbers normally, and when we calculate this difference, then we square that value, right? So in here we're gonna make the difference of the square sums, and then we make the square minus the sum of the squares. This should yield the result that we're looking for, right? So let's go through it. Python problem 6 of I. Let's go. This is the result. This is the difference. Let's just test it here, the answer. Check. Yes, and it is correct. Yes, this is one way to solve this problem, but there is also a mathematical way, right? So in the mathematical way, we're gonna use sequences to calculate this. So in this case, the sum of the squares, there is a formulation to go for the sum of the squares, which is defined. So sum of squares. This is defined as the sum of the squares is defined as n plus 1 multiplied by 2n plus 1, and all of this divided by 6. There is a mathematical proof for this sum of the squares. If you want me to go that deep in why this is the formula for the sum of the squares, please let me know so that I can make this mathematical proof for you. And there is also the square, the sum of a sequence, which we have used before in problem number 1, if I'm not mistaken, which is just like the first element number 1 plus the element in the last position multiplied by the number of elements in this sequence divided by 2, right? So we can use these two calculations to just to find out this. In this case of the sum of the squares, then we can just write this calculation as it is stated here, n multiplied by n plus 1 multiplied by 2 multiplied by n plus 1 divided by 6. And in this case, n is equal to 100. And the square of the sums it's gonna be the first element of this list, 1, plus the last element of this list, 100, multiplied by the number of elements in this list, which is 100, divided by 2. And all of this, we're gonna square. And then for our result, we just calculate this difference, which should be the square of the sums minus the sum of the squares. Right? I expect this to give the right result. Let's take a look. Yes, it gives the right result. However, this is in a float. Let's just make it an integer, right? All of this I want to make an integer. And I also want to make this an integer, just to make sure that we have the right data types. Okay? And yes, then we have both the solutions giving the same results, and we know this result is correct. Thank you so much for watching, and we see each other in the next problem. Please like, share, subscribe, and sign on the notification bell if you want to see more problems like this.